समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Delhi election campaign is on now, and given the amount of muck and nonsense and abuse and just the toxic stuff that is being flung by various contestants on each other, sometimes it resembles the kind of discussions or debates or what passes off for discussions and debates on your primetime TV channels, which I no longer watch, and I hope you don't watch either, because if you do, it will be very toxic for you. It will cause you harm. Just as if you drank the water from our river, that is River Yamuna in Delhi, that will be very bad for your health. This will be very bad for your physical health. Watching that toxic debate or these toxic campaigns can also be bad for your mental health. Now, that is something we can't do very much about. That is the toxic nature of our discourse, our political discourse. But our river, at least we can clean. Yamuna is the river that justifies the existence of Delhi. Through history, big cities have come up along the rivers. If there was no Nile, there'll be no Cairo. If there was no Hudson, there'll be no New York. If there was no Ganga, there'll be no Varanasi. If there was no Yamuna, there will be no Delhi, and by just Delhi, Mathura, Agra. Some of the most important parts of our country, even in terms of the Hindu religion, are located along the Jamuna and the Ganga, of which Jamuna is the largest tributary. And stay with me through this episode of Cut the Clutter, which is talking about the sorry state of the Yamuna River, Delhi's lifeline. Because at the conclusion of this episode, I will have Apurva Mandhani join in with me, and we will have some news for you, maybe some good news. Now, Jamuna in Delhi is very highly polluted. It's among the most polluted large rivers in the country. And in a way, it's a good thing that this has become a political issue in this campaign, with each party claiming that they will come and clean the Yamuna. The fact is, all of them have taken their turns. They've all been in power. In Delhi, a lot of the power sits with the center, and yet the state of the Yamuna has gotten worse and worse and worse. In the past, there was also a joint venture or a project that was done with Japanese help that failed in the 90s. More efforts have been made, but as time has passed, Yamuna has become worse and worse. Now, to understand this, to explain this to us, I have with me Soumya Pillai, our senior assistant editor who covers science and environment. So I'm also introducing her to you on Cut the Clutter. She's the one who's been following this story. You will see the story that she's done today on how Yamuna is looking so bad, becoming worse, and now it's being worsened because of the conflict between the elected government and the lieutenant governor of Delhi, because each one claims powers over the cleanup, and when one tries to do something, the other one stops it. In the last instance, it was the LG who started a cleanup project. It was sanctified by the National Green Tribunal, and that started with the cleaning up of drain number 8 or Najafgarh drain, which brings a lot of the water into Delhi, which brings a lot of the water into the Yamuna in Delhi. Najafgarh drain actually is not really a drain. It's a rain-fed river called Sahibi River or Sabi River, starts somewhere in Rajasthan. So this is जिसको बोलते हैं उल्टी गंगा बह रही है. This is a river starting deep inside dry Rajasthan. It's a rain-fed river, but it's a natural course which in rainy season brings a lot of water and empties it on the outskirts of Delhi. In fact, earlier, all of it used to collect in one open area in Najafgarh, which is on the western outskirts of Delhi. Najafgarh is the place where Virender Sehwag comes from. To non-Delhi walas, that's one way for me to help locate Najafgarh. There, this water used to accumulate in a lake, and that would sometimes become like a lake of 300 square kilometers, that large. That was later channelized, a drain was dug, and the drain brought that water right up to the Yamuna with many barrages, because after all it was water that had to be used. But at the same time, a lot of the Delhi's sewage and muck and filth and dirt also started to get emptied in this drain number 8 or Najafgarh drain. That is where the LG, this committee was set up by the National Green Tribunal under the LG to clean up drain number 8. That means if you can clean this main artery, like the jugular supplying the Yamuna in Delhi, then that itself will improve the state of the Yamuna a great deal. But then Delhi government went to Supreme Court and said this was unconstitutional. This was an interference in their powers, and they secured a stay order. So that project has also stopped. Now, I will give you just a couple of basic facts about the Yamuna, and then Soumya will take over. So first of all, Yamuna, the river, it is the Ganga's largest tributary. It's also India's largest river that does not directly empty into the sea. The Kumbh is going on. We know now, everybody, in any case in India, everybody knows that the Yamuna goes and meets the Ganga at Prayagraj. That is where the Sangam is. And then it carries on as the larger Ganga, being the largest tributary. The length of the Jamna, however, is 1376 kilometers. It's a very long river, starting up from the glaciers in Uttarakhand Himalayas, from the southwestern slopes of the Bandarpunch Massif, and in fact coming out of what is called as the Yamunotri Glacier. Initially, it's snow-fed, but in the course of time, it becomes more and more and more and more rain-fed. In Haryana and Himachal, but more in Haryana, there is a barrage that was built in British times at Tajewala that divided the river's water into two canals, Western Yamuna Canal going into Haryana, Eastern Yamuna Canal going into Uttar Pradesh. Now that's been shifted, another barrage has been built, a newer barrage at a place called Hathri Kund. So quite a bit of the water is taken away there. And again, as the river flows onwards, other tributaries join it. Among those tributaries is this filth-laden Najafgarh drain in Delhi, and also the Hindon River, which comes from the eastern side, from the UP side. That's also full of filth. That's a 400-kilometer rain-fed rivulet. And then as it goes ahead, then you have other rivers. You have the Tons, the Chambal, the Ken, and the Betwa. These are the major tributaries of the Jamna. And then it meets the Ganga. Now the important thing is that of its 1376 kilometer length, it passes through Delhi only for 22 kilometers. That is less than 2% of the entire length of the Jamna. If you just want to see the drainage area for the river is a total of 36,220 square kilometers, of which only 180 square kilometers falls in Delhi. That is 0.4% of all of the drainage area, and yet, and that's the important part, Delhi accounts for 76% of all the pollution, all the pollutants in the river. Why? That's because nearly 3.5 crore fairly well-to-do people by Indian standards, they live alongside the Yamuna in Delhi, along both banks, on the eastern side, where then it goes into UP, and on the western bank as well. This is where the river loses its life and the river actually dies. In the Hindu history, Hindu belief, Yamuna is one of the children of Lord Surya or Sun. Yamuna is a daughter of Sun, and her brother is Yam, the god of death. And it's ironical that in the city of Delhi, it is Yamuna which we have killed through neglect and absolute indifference. So Soumya, at which point, after this long preamble, over to you. Tell us, how does the Yamuna enter Delhi and what happens by the time it leaves, and why does it happen?
So to start off, I just want to stress that we are not absolving any government of blame, because Yamuna is pretty polluted even when it is there in Haryana. And the blame that the Delhi government has constantly been putting on Haryana in various courts of law is that Panipat and Sonipat are 2 points where much of the pollution of Yamuna enters Delhi. So the blame that Delhi government puts is that Panipat is a major area where much of the industrial effluents enter Yamuna. And as it goes on to Sonipat, there is a lot of intermixing of industrial effluents that go into fresh water and before it enters Delhi. So that's basically the argument that Delhi government puts forth. But the fact is that what data tells is that just these 22 kilometers, like you said, is absolutely, Yamuna's flowing as a dead river. And I would like to quote some data just to show that, how just in Delhi, from where it enters Delhi, which is on the northern end, there is this barrage called Palla. From where it enters, there is this marker that the Delhi Pollution Control Committee has, which is dissolved oxygen. So dissolved oxygen, just for our viewers, is basically how much oxygen is dissolved in water. It gives you a sense of how healthy the aquatic life in the river would be. So higher the dissolved oxygen level, the better is the health of the river. So when it enters the river through its northern end through Palla, the dissolved oxygen level is actually 6.1 mg per liter, which is well within the Central Pollution Control Board's
It's not
standards.
great, but
it's not
acceptable.
great.
But acceptable.
Yes. The standard that CPCB has is 5 mg per liter. When it enters Delhi through Palla, the recording that we have is around 6.1 mg per liter. By the time it reaches Wazirabad, which is somewhere in the middle of the river in Delhi, it goes down to 5.3 mg per liter. But when it exits Delhi, Asgarpur is the last recording point that Delhi has for Yamuna. It is absolutely nil. So by the time it exits the capital, you have an absolutely dead river which cannot support life at all.
So no fish, no tortoise,
Nothing.
nothing can survive.
Nothing can
and that is the water that goes towards Mathura, the home of Lord Krishna.
Yes, yes. And like you said that, Delhi is where, Delhi is also the most polluted part of Yamuna. We have the major pollutants. When Kejriwal said that, that Haryana was poisoning Delhiites, he essentially meant ammonia levels. But apart from the DO levels that we were talking about, ammonia levels also go to just dangerously high levels in Delhi. We have another set of data, which again their own agency, which is Delhi Pollution Control Committee, has, is that every year we have these ammonia spikes, and every year we have around 15 to 23 episodes of ammonia spikes in Delhi. So the maximum period for this is after monsoon, when the flow sort of starts to reduce. So December to March is the time that we are seeing where the water flow reduces and the pollutants immediately rise. So there's another set of data that Delhi government's own pollution monitoring agency, DPCC, has given us, is that the amount of ammonia in Wazirabad has been above 3 ppm, which is 3 parts per million. And I want to clarify that any sewage treatment plant in Delhi cannot treat ammonia that is above 1 ppm. So we are talking about 3 ppm, which is like several times higher than what the STPs can handle in Delhi. So just the days where it was above 3 ppm was 39 out of 58 days. So like much of the last 1 month has been dangerously high levels of ammonia.
So what does ammonia do? Why is ammonia so bad, and where does ammonia come from?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Ammonia basically is the most significant source of pollution in the river Yamuna. The primary sources from which we get ammonia is industrial effluents, sewage, untreated sewage, fertilizers, and organic waste that comes into the river, which is not treated. So all of this sort of mixed together and releases this gas called ammonia, which degrades the quality of water. Essentially, what happens is that ammonia, in the longer run, kills any aquatic life which would be in the river. But if you just talk about human consumption, prolonged exposure to ammonia can cause cancers. I mean, I'm talking about more like the most insignificant exposure would be a skin rash and eye irritation, but in the longer run, it can harm your internal organs, causing cancer in the longer run. So anybody who is professionally attached to the river, like fishermen, you have people who dive into the rivers. In the longer run, it's just, reducing their life.
Or so many people stand knee deep during
Yes.
Chhat Puja
Yes.
or other festivals when they take a dubki, holy dip in the river. They are all exposing themselves to this.
Yes, in the longer run, it will be extremely bad for their health.
Yeah. So ammonia is one. What are the other pollutants? I believe there is also a lot of coliform.
Yes.
And that amount goes up. It's not that much when the river enters Delhi, but then it goes up.
Yeah. So, ammonia is the primary one. Fecal coliform is what we call, which is essentially exactly what the word means. It is untreated sewage that comes from your washrooms, especially from the unauthorized localities which don't have proper sewer lines. So it immediately exits into a
river.
supportive drain, and which then goes on to exit into the river. Then we have a lot of phosphates and surfactants. Like every season, we all talk about the fact that Yamuna is frothy and there's foam over Yamuna. It is basically untreated surfactants, which is detergents, low quality detergents which don't get treated and then release into the Yamuna, causing the pollution levels to just spike off the
Yeah,
roof.
that's why sometimes, say, when you go in the Western world, developed world, then detergents have standards.
Yes.
That you cannot sell detergents who do not meet these pollution standards. But in India, cheaper detergents usually don't follow any
And we
such
also
yardsticks.
sell it in a way that more the froth, the better it is
Haan,
performing.
haan.
So I think that's an understanding that most
I know all of us have
households-
got used to doing this
Yes.
in the pre-washing machine
Yeah.
era also. The more
Yeah.
the froth,
Yeah.
jitna jhaag hoga. In fact, I think a lot of the advertising for detergents was also like that.
Yeah.
That the more
More
jhaag you
the
get,
jhaag,
the more
the
froth you
more-
get,
yeah.
the better the detergent. But the worse it is for the water, particularly if your city lives by a river. So coliforms is what gives you the really deadly infections.
Yes.
Cholera, gastroenteritis is actually the least of the killers. It's a terrible thing to have. You don't wish it on your enemy, but it has cholera, it has typhoid, it has hepatitis, isn't it?
So basically, it is the source of all waterborne diseases that anybody can get through. And we might think that we are not drinking this water, but there's some kind of exposure that will happen, and the pollution level and the levels are so high that would be enough to actually expose you to such. And you were pointing out about how dangerous it is, and much of it actually exits into the river in Delhi. So when we look at data for fecal coliform itself, again, DPCC data shows that around 4,000 million liters of wastewater exits into Yamuna only in Delhi. And when we recorded fecal coliform in Asgarpur, which we said was the exit point of Yamuna from Delhi, it was 8.4 million units per 100 ml, which is so high that it can actually cause debilitating impacts to your health.
Almost immediately.
Almost immediately.
If you drink the water
Yes,
from there. So
almost
these
immediately.
chief ministers keep saying, Pani pi ke dikha, Pani pi ke dikha. I'd rather that they don't.
Right.
Because we know that Bhagwant Mann in Punjab had once said that his rivers are clean and he'll drink water. I think it was the Satluj, and he drank it and then spent some time in hospital after that. So please don't drink water straight from your river. That's the reason people are boiling water and people are filtering water, and that's the reason this whole RO industry has come up in India. RO industry is a prime example of broken window economics. I've used that metaphor many times. That's when you break a window, somebody throws a stone, you break a window, then what happens? Then you buy a new window and replace it. So in the process, somebody gets a job, government gets its taxes, right? And economy gets a leg up, and you can again break it and again build it. So this is an example of broken window economics, that we have broken our own window in the sense of ruining our own river and water, and because of that, everybody now has to scrounge and save and somehow find a water filter, if not an RO system. And that's how this whole bottled water business and the tanker business has come up, isn't it?
Definitely. I still remember that when Arvind Kejriwal came in his second term, he said that Yamuna is going to be clean enough where you will be able to fill your glasses and drink from it. I hope there is a time that that day comes, but that time definitely is not this. But like we've also multiple times reported that the cleaning of Yamuna has been caught so much in this political
Politics.
tussle between both the center, state, and in this case, because there are so many multiple owners of the river in terms of just state boundaries also, that the river ultimately has suffered, because it's like too many owners, but nobody wants to take ownership when it actually comes to acting and actually doing something on the ground. The LG and Delhi government tussle was one such example where some work had started on the Najafgarh drain now, which was earlier a river, and again, like the tussle happened in the court, and now that work is also stopped.
So if we cannot clean the Yamuna, the water that's coming in, at least a rich city like Delhi and rich government like Delhi can at least ensure that it doesn't put any more muck in the Yamuna. Whereas the fact is that 76% of all of the pollution in the Yamuna across its 1376 kilometers comes from this city, just 22 kilometers, where the richest city-state in the country, the seat of the central government, the seat of a state government, all the powerful people, politicians, the prime minister, the cabinet, the judges of the Supreme Court, the High Court, top lawyers, top journalists, everybody lives here. And yet we ruin this river, which is a real tragedy. And there's a lot of name calling, and it's impossible to say who's responsible, but the fact is all of us are responsible for this sad state of the river. And it's our hope, Soumya, isn't it, that maybe because it's become a political issue now, the government that comes into power after this election will have no choice but to do something about this, because it will still not become so clean that you can take a glass of water out of it and drink it safely, but it will become much, much, much safer. It will become much less of an embarrassment to us as a national capital. That was my editorial wish, Soumya, on a practical and scientific level. Do you have any solutions?
Much of the solutions, honestly, is not very high on investment, and it's not undoable like all these governments have been making it out to be. And my suggestion here comes from the several experts that I've been speaking to in the course of the reports that I've been doing. One of the main things that the Delhi government can do is at least plug your systems. So all of this untreated sewage that is entering the river, a major solution would come from the fact that, if the governments are able to plug the sewer system in the city. Another solution that the governments can look at is to increase the environmental flow or the ecological flow of the river, as we say. That's a very natural process of cleaning that a river adopts. So if you increase the flow of the river, increase the water that is released into Yamuna, which again becomes an issue of matter of politics between Haryana and Delhi. But if that happens, the river will naturally rejuvenate and be able to survive.
Because that is the kind of thing that's been done with Sabarmati in Ahmedabad. Sabarmati was every bit as filthy as the Yamuna in Delhi, with much less water. I've stayed in Ahmedabad in those periods where you could not open your hotel window. It was an open air latrine. But now, as it was channelized through the city, water, Narmada water was diverted. It comes into Sabarmati, so the flow is maintained and then it goes back to the river.
Yeah. So river, I mean, natural systems like rivers have a way of rejuvenating themselves. So they are survivors in their own account. So you don't have to have these, big investments, big treatment plants. You just have to increase the flow of the river and it will automatically, learn how to survive and learn how to, subside its pollution levels, which it does after it exits Delhi, to be honest. And we've seen how it does that. So there are solutions that governments can look at, and it's not a secret anymore because expert panels have discussed it, experts on various public forums have discussed it. It's just political will that will be needed to implement these on the ground.
Well, political will, dekhenge, let's see. When it comes right now, we just have politics over it, and it's quite nasty politics. That's the reason I started out by saying that muck is flying over this issue. I do hope at the end of the day, some muck is reduced. At least we reduce the amount of muck we throw into the Yamuna. This river is really our lifeline, and we've killed it. On that wish, is that a good wish to conclude this, Soumya?
Absolutely.
So thank you very much. And as I had promised you early on, there will be a surprise and a little bit of news at the conclusion of this episode of Cut the Clutter. So I will now be joined in by Apurva Mandhani, who you know well. And now the little bit of news which I had promised you, and you might have figured it or guessed it, seeing Apurva Mandhani sitting here, who all of you know well. We used to have a weekly show, Headlines ke Piche Shekhar ke Saath, where I took your questions and answered them with Apurva Mandhani. It is now coming back, the show, this weekend under a new name. क्या नाम है?
शेखर से सवाल.
शेखर से सवाल. Just as Headlines के पीछे with DK Singh is now also back as Politics Unfiltered, where he answers your questions with Neelam Pandey. So instead of one Headlines के पीछे, now you have two. You have Politics Unfiltered with DK, and he focuses specifically on politics, whereas I come back with Apurva with Shekhar ke Sawal, and there, as we always do, we take a wide-angle view of the world, so you can ask me questions about anything from any field. If I have the answers, I'll give them to you. If I don't, I'll check out and let you know in the course of time. The difference this time is an important one. We'll take questions only from our members on the YouTube community. I mean, from the ones who have the badges. See those badges on your screen? We will choose between 5 and 7 questions every episode and answer them in some detail. For the questions that are chosen, we will send you at least a small token of our gratitude, a small goodie bag, something to read or something to use. That will be to our great joy and satisfaction. We will share the link to post questions on our YouTube community and social media platforms soon. You can also send your questions on email to a very discreet address, members@theprint.in. You just say you are a member, we'll take you at your word. So, if you are a member, please start sending your questions. If you are not a member, please take that membership on our YouTube channel. It doesn't cost very much. You can see on your screen how this works. It has many, many, many benefits, and more benefits will come up as we go ahead. So, Apurva, आप बताओ, कई दिन का ब्रेक हुआ, अब क्या होने वाला है?
अब बहुत कुछ होने वाला है, जैसे आप ऑलरेडी बता चुके हैं. हर सप्ताह, हर हफ्ते हम आपसे एक बार फिर मिलेंगे. सवाल होंगे आपके, जवाब होंगे शेखर के, और पूरी कोशिश करूंगी कि ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा सवाल एक बार फिर शेखर तक पहुंचा पाऊं. इसके साथ साथ आपसे अपील भी करूंगी कि आप हमारी मेंबरशिप लें, क्योंकि जैसे कि शेखर ने बताया, कई सारे इसके बेनिफिट्स हैं और ये बेनिफिट्स अब सिर्फ यहाँ से ऊपर ही जाएंगे.
So, धन्यवाद अपूर्वा. It's good to be back after a little bit of a break.
थैंक यू सो मच शेखर, और आप सबका भी धन्यवाद. मैं बहुत ही उत्सुक हूँ एक बार फिर आप सभी से हर हफ्ते मिलने के लिए.